Welcome to a preview of Anno PAX Romana or Anno 117. The more we learn about this game, the more excited I get. I've done a video on this a couple of months ago, which actually seemed to have you guys interested a lot. And finally, we have news and pictures and screenshots. We don't need to rely on AI anymore. We can actually have some scenes and some very spicy info about this upcoming game. This is going to be released in this year, so 2025. It's the brand new installment in the Anno franchise, and if you are familiar with it, this is one of the biggest German game brands, so it's actually close to my heart, obviously. Being a German, we don't really have that many big franchises, and Anno obviously is also one that has some very big wins in the past, so very hard to beat. And this is why I'm even more so excited to talk about this and see where this is going, because oh my god, there are a lot of big changes to the core of the genre, I would say, and it's going to be very exciting to see how that's going to turn out. But now let's get into it and do it step by step, because there are some points we have to talk about which are super cool. Let's start with the story, because Manuel, the one guy from Ubisoft you've seen there, who is the creative director on the game, has told us something about the story, and we are playing with a guy called Marcus, potentially the one you see on screen, and he's been sent out to build in an area that has been struck by some natural catastrophes a couple decades ago, and is slowly recovering from these. He's also a sibling to someone who we don't know yet, and he's been under pressure from his family all along, and something goes wrong, and then he's going to be sent into exile. And in Anno PAX Romana, we are going to be seeing two different areas. Latium, which is basically very close to Rome, very close to the heart of the whole thing, and Albion, that you can see on screen right now, the foreign, or like the kind of lands very far away, which is the kind of modern Great Britain area kind of thing. And you can see there are different cultures. This picture shows that very nicely, and you gotta have to decide if you lean into the local culture, or if you want to try to sculpt over the Roman Empire, the Roman culture. Very similar to what obviously history has shown us, and also Asterix Obelix, maybe. Like a lot of things like this come to my mind, and it is a great idea, I think, to really boil together those two regions. And I'm guessing in the Endless game, which is also an Anno favorite, it is going to be very interesting how those two areas are connected to each other, because I mean, in the storyline you basically will go from A to B, but you will also uncover some very interesting cultural things in there, which then will hopefully give you some access to specific, items, specific goods that you will then need to please the people living back in Latium, and vice versa. So the typical kind of Anno thing, and I am a lover of Anno 1404, which had these two very distinct regions within one huge map. So I'm not sure if that's the thing in here. I'm also kind of not against like switching maps and being on a different type of map, because that just kind of increases the amount of space you have. But maybe with a modern day computer and modern day technology, you could bring that all into one gigantic map. That would be really cool. And we're also going to talk about the islands in a bit, because Ubisoft has held a little giveaway or kind of competition for people to design some continents. But let's look into that. So on Anno Union, the website and forum where you can actually get all the information around this wonderful game and genre, these were the winner introductions to the competition. And there has been a template on how to do these kind of continents, and again, if you're not an Anno player, I'm trying to get this in for everyone always. So in Anno, you basically start off with a ship, usually, and then you're going to search for some islands, but these islands actually in the last couple of games became continents, if you will. So they're basically very large islands, and on which you can start your settlement, and then after a while you'll need to start settle on other islands or continents that have different goods, different fatality, and all these kind of things, and then you have to install basically trade routes between them to make sure that your main island is filled with all goods, and you can basically upgrade all of your houses and stuff. Now, this is obviously a competition of people designing those, but this also gives us an idea of how they will be approaching these type of continents. And as you can see with these like huge mountain spaces, and you've seen that already in the gameplay a little, this is going to be very different this time around from older Anno games, we have already seen in Anno 1800 that they already embarked some bigger islands, like almost continent space like. So very good to see that you have it again. But the Mediterranean Sea offers a lot of opportunities for also smaller islands, but also we have some semi-continents like Sicily, for example, or if you go up to Great Britain, for example. Don't want to call it an island though, you know the jokes, but it kind of fills all in. So very interesting to see. But you know what's also very interesting? If you want to connect islands and continents together, what do you need for that? Right, you're right, you need ships. And we do have some proper footage of the ships in Anno, so let's basically have a look into that. And they come with a massive overhaul, because in the Roman Empire, like in the times of those, basically you only got 2 types of ships in these times, and that was the very versatile and very most often used longship, what you can see on screen, and the other thing that they potentially had were an actuaria, if that is the correct pronunciation. And the difference is that the longship was mostly used for combat and all sorts of transportation for people and armies, while the actuaria is basically a trade ship, if you will. And then there were also some kind of adaptations of those 2 ships. But what's very interesting is that a longship most likely is a very versatile base variant, which could have been changed into nearly every other element you wanted. And this is exactly what you see on screen. Ships in Anno PAX Romana or 117 will be modular. And that's a huge change to all the previous Anno titles, because in the previous Anno games, you always had the choice to build a certain ship, and then this ship was done. You could put some extras on it, but these extras were non-visible. They were like, 2x speed or 2x damage or 2x kind of combat, whatever. And they were almost like items, but you couldn't really upgrade them visually and functionally. But now you can put on different types of sails. You can increase the available storage room by getting rid of the routers and of the ability to move without the sails. But if you need more movement for a lesser wind region, because wind is going to play a role again in this game, like in the previous game, and you have to maintain a certain speed when you don't have the sails available, for example. But you also have these kind of combat towers, as you can see, with crossbow army units on top of it, as you can tell, which also is a little bit of a giveaway to what is going to happen with the combat system. One of the biggest criticisms of Anno 1800, for example, was that there was no land combat whatsoever. A huge part of every Anno game always has been combat on the sea, so sea fights have been a thing, will be a thing, and the fact that you have full modularity with these ships now will make it obviously a lot more interesting and very exciting to see how you will be able to change them. If you have to change beforehand how the ships will be, or if you can upgrade this on the go, which would be a very interesting gameplay mechanic, also in terms of how many, like what kind of units or items you want to, or resources you will use for that, and if you need to have these resources on the ship basically, or if you need to have them on the island where they have been produced. Many questions that have not been answered yet, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this is going to work. Also, apparently, if people will be very much into the Roman history, obviously there will be more ships than the 2 I named, but I'm assuming that they won't go too deep into it. But I feel like we will have a different trade ship variant. I feel like this is the long ship that can be utilized for many, many things, but we will also have a trade ship variant, and then, interestingly enough, how this will be changed with some modules. But I personally find this change very, very great, because that will give you a lot of opportunities changing your ships before you produce them. Maybe you can create some blueprints, so you have that one ship with 2 sails, as you can see on screen, which potentially is for one route the fastest, because that's a route where the wind is very positive for you. And then you have some with lesser sails, but with the ruders and stuff, to make sure that you have a route where there's less wind, but then you also have less capacity, and then you will need more ships eventually. So a very strategic element of the game, which I like. But it's time to speak about another very major change to the long and glorious history of Anno games, because that is a first, and we are talking about roads and pathways. So why is this special? So Anno has always been, historically and also almost iconically, been on a very straight 90 degree grid. Even these 45-degree angled roads you can see in this concept art over here, or basically an explanation of the new road system, has never been part of the game. So that is a very, very interesting thing to see, because it is going to give you so many more opportunities to build in an Anno game. So as I said before, even until the Anno 1800, there was only 90-degree option. Grids were the thing to go, and that still resulted in a very nice looking area, because they had a very good idea of building buildings that did profit from a bit more plaza areas and stuff. But now, as you can build this, there is a kind of system in game which is similar to Planet Coaster's approach on the new pathing. It basically has a bezier on the corners, so you still basically build on a grid in a way, but then it will kind of straighten out or smooth out the pathway that you did. So you can create all sorts of roads, as you can see on screen right now, with basically still the same grid available to you. It'll only create these new type of roads. So it's not only that you can do these kind of very 45-degree-esque pathways, you can also create some very other roads by going a bit straight, then changing again, because what will happen again with this feature is that it's gonna kind of smooth out the corners between the 2 connection points or 3 connection points of the road, which is gonna result in a very good looking pathway and a way more organic looking pathway. I'm very excited for that, and there's also a screenshot that kind of gives away, as you can see on screen right now, that most likely also fields and other kind of things will be aligning to those rounded edges, if I will call it this way. It's not confirmed or anything, but these kind of fields over here do actually look like as if they go to towards the kind of pathway and connect very nicely with the fencing. It kind of makes sense though, because if this kind of grid system still applies, and the only thing that is, well, the major change is that the kind of bezier is applied, then this would make sense that the bezier is also applied to connected fields, and you could still put the fields in as we were used to in the past, but then they will result in a way more natural look without giving away space for resources to be harvested. Okay, last but not least, we have to look at these new screenshots available. And the one thing that I love Anno for, from the very first Anno 1602, is the ambience, the atmosphere, the kind of way how the game drags you into the setting. And this is what they've always been absolutely top-notch at, whether it's been on the moon or in the very early 14th century, or actually 15th century, I should say, or now in the Roman Empire. I look at these maps, I look at all of it, and I already have the feeling I can totally see myself back in some history books, and in the southern region, Mediterranean region, it looks so beautiful. Also the lighting, everything around, it also looks way more spacious than anything else I've seen in the Anno universe so far. I mean, it kind of gets a little bit similar to 1800, which also has been massive, but oh boy, I'm so excited. I mean, if you look at all these things, I want to start building my own Roman Empire on these continents/islands. It's going to be very interesting to see, nevertheless. And I also must say that the maps itself that we've seen in the trailer now and in these screenshots, they already look very interesting in terms of height elevations. That's definitely massively different from most of the other Anno games that had a relatively flat ground at the end of the day. But this over here looks very hilly, very Mediterranean, very Italian, obviously. And I mean, look at all these lavender down there, as it seems to be. We also have some huge like rocks on the left-hand side, and this kind of area over here with you know, the water coming in this bay. Oh, it just looks so good with the sun glooming in. I just adore how that looks. And again, the picture we've talked about earlier here with the fields, and you can see that ship. Is it leaving? Is it coming? I don't even know. Is it one island? Is it gonna hug a huge bay, or is that island we can see up front another one? I don't even know, but I want to discover that, you know. And you can also see these farmhouses over here. If I would need to guess, these already seem to be very, maybe not late game, but maybe mid game somewhere, because they look already pretty damn good. And in terms of, like, you know, the building style itself, we're still talking Roman Empire. They look very, very clean and nicely built for that sake. So I'm also very, very interested to see some more about the architecture that they're going for in Latium, but also in Albion, depending on what you've chosen to go for. So yeah, this game, my friends, is is looking more and more not only promising, but really as a very brave step for Anno, for the genre, but also for Ubisoft, obviously, or Ubisoft, I should say. For me, basically being a German, I always say Ubisoft, but whatever. It's gonna be very, very interesting. If they pull it off in the right way, this could be a massive step forward for the whole genre. And I gotta be honest with you, before the game has been announced, we all knew that there is going to be a new Anno. The series is just way too prominent, way too successful to not continue it. But they have already explored quite a lot, you know. They've explored the future many times, they've explored the past, they've explored the deep sea, they've explored some kind of not so distant future with like economics and more going into the natural disasters with the flooded earth. They've gone, as I said, to the moon. Very interesting scenarios, very interesting things to do, and so it was really hard to tell where they want to go. And now they really go a lot further back in history, and I'm very, very, very interested to see where this is going to end. And as I said, if they pull this off, this is for me personally the closest it gets to 1404, which, well, is funny enough because it's still like 1,000 years later, more than 1,000 years later. So very interesting to say the least. And in terms of architecture, as I said, you can see some of these artworks here being very prominent to what this is going to be. I adore the Roman architecture. I adore it. It's not like the typical kind of dirty medieval. It's been the Roman Empire. There's a reason why the word romantic is the way romantic sounds. It is all back from this time, and I think it's a very beautiful kind of architectural style, but also a very beautiful epoch to embark and get into from storytelling, but also from a building perspective. So yeah, you hear me very excited, and I am, and I will cover more of it as soon as we have more info. Maybe I forgot something that has been said somewhere or so, but for the broader overview, that's all I can give you. You can also, as I said, like in these kind of videos you have seen, there is also this type of different cult you can see, almost like Stonehenge-wise, where the people were gathering together. We've seen the first land units in there, but also on this artwork, by the way, you can also see units basically getting on land via the pier there. So it's more or less confirmed. It's a huge thing for the series, but it's more or less confirmed from these type of things. And as they were talking about this, and also, I can't wait to see more. They announced that in April, there will be more news about the game. I do assume that the launch of the game will be again relatively towards later Q3, Q4 of this year. But very excited to hear more. So we're going to be covering that on the channel as soon as it pops up, and I do hope now that you guys are happy with this little overview, and let me know in the comments down below what you think of this game. Let me know, have you ever played Anno? What was the first Anno that you've ever played? What was the Anno that brought you into the series? What's the favorite game? What's the favorite Anno? And if you've never heard of it, how dare you? Have you been living under a rock? So let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I talk to you in the next one. Oh, by the way, if you haven't subbed to the channel yet, that would be absolutely romantic. Okay, sorry, but you can still sub, okay?